He was the kind of man people noticed the moment he entered a room. Not because he was kind or warm, but because he carried himself like someone who expected the world to move out of his way. He owned land, businesses, and several houses, and in the eyes of many, that made him important. In the town where he lived, money spoke louder than character. And his money spoke very loudly. From a young age, he learned that wealth could open doors and silence questions. When people disagreed with him, he ignored them. When they judged him, he reminded them of his success. Over time, this way of living shaped how he saw everything around him, including people. To him, most relationships were temporary, useful for a time, then replaceable. Marriage, especially, meant little to him. He did not see it as a bond of respect or partnership. He saw it as an arrangement that existed for his comfort. When the comfort ended, so did the marriage. This belief did not come from one bad experience. It grew slowly, reinforced each time he walked away without consequences. His first marriage happened when he was still young and eager to prove himself. The woman he married believed in building a life together. She dreamed of shared meals, shared struggles, and shared victories. But he was impatient. When she questioned his decisions or asked for time and attention, he felt challenged. Instead of talking, he pulled away. The marriage ended quietly, with him blaming her for being too demanding. The second wife came soon after. People whispered that it was too fast, but he ignored them. This time, he chose someone who admired his wealth and status. At first, he enjoyed the attention, but admiration quickly turned into expectations. When she asked for stability and respect, he grew distant again. He convinced himself that she was ungrateful. She left with little more than her dignity, while he moved on without looking back. By the time the third and fourth marriages ended, the pattern was clear to everyone except him. Each woman entered his life hoping to be the one who would finally be treated differently. Each woman left feeling used and unheard. Some tried to defend themselves, some stayed silent, and some broke down under the pressure. He told himself the same story every time, that the problem was never him. People in the town began to talk more openly. At tea shops and family gatherings, his name came up often. Some said he was cursed. Others said he simply did not know how to love. But no one confronted him directly. His influence was too strong. Many depended on his businesses for their income. As the number of marriages increased, his attitude grew colder. He stopped pretending to care about his wife's feelings. He set strict rules inside his house. Everything ran according to his comfort meals, schedules, even conversations. Any disagreement felt like disrespect to him. Wives 5 through 8 barely lasted long enough to be remembered. Some stayed a year, some only months. One tried hard to please him, changing herself again and again, hoping he would soften. Another remained quiet, believing patience would earn love. Neither approach worked. When he grew bored or annoyed, he simply decided it was over. Each time a marriage ended, he recovered quickly. There was no pause, no reflection. The house would be cleaned, old belongings removed, and within weeks, talks of a new marriage would begin. To him, this was normal. To others, it was unsettling. By the 9th marriage, even his own relatives began to feel uncomfortable. They tried to advise him gently, suggesting counseling or time alone. He brushed them off. In his mind, advice from others felt like an insult. He believed his success in business proved he knew how to handle life. The 10th wife entered his life when many believed he would finally change. She was educated, calm, and thoughtful. For a short time, things seemed different. He appeared more settled, more patient. People hoped this marriage would last. But when she began to speak openly about fairness and respect, he felt threatened. The familiar tension returned, and soon. That marriage also ended. After the 10th separation, his reputation was no longer just a rumor. It was a fact people accepted. Some women refused to consider marrying him, no matter how much wealth he offered. Others, especially those from difficult backgrounds, still agreed, believing they could endure anything for security. He did not see their fear or desperation. To him, their agreement meant acceptance of his rules. He convinced himself that providing money was enough. Emotional care, listening, and kindness felt unnecessary to him. Inside his large house, the walls were quiet but heavy. Rooms that once held laughter now held silence. He filled the emptiness with work and control. He told himself he preferred peace, yet deep down, something remained unsettled. Still, when the idea of marriage came again, he did not hesitate. He spoke of it casually, as if choosing furniture. The number did not matter to him anymore. Whether it was the 11th or the 12th, it was all the same. What he did not know, what he never considered, was that the next woman to enter his life would not fit the pattern he had created. She would not arrive with demands or expectations. She would come with nothing but quiet strength, shaped by hardship he could not understand. At this point, however, he felt confident, almost careless. 10 marriages had ended, yet he stood untouched. In his mind, this proved he was right all along. He believed he was in control, unaware that control is often weakest, just before it breaks. The 11th wife came into his life quietly, almost like a shadow that no one noticed at first. She was different from the women who had walked through his doors before. She was poor, with no family to support her, and her clothes were simple. There was nothing in her appearance that suggested she would capture the attention of someone like him. Yet, against all odds, she became his choice. At first, people laughed at the idea. They whispered that she would never survive the household, that she would be replaced like all the others. Even some servants shook their heads, expecting the same pattern to repeat. She knew none of this. She carried herself with humility, and though she had fears, she faced them quietly. The first days were the hardest. The house was unfamiliar and filled with strict rules. Meals were timed, voices were measured, and silence was often demanded. She observed everything, learning what was expected of her without complaint. Unlike the previous wives, she did not try to impress him with flattery or wealth. She simply existed, quietly doing what she could to maintain peace. The man watched her, as he did all the others, expecting to grow bored or irritated. At first, she seemed ordinary, unremarkable, and easily ignored. He continued his routines, confident that she would follow the same path as the women before her. But she surprised him in small ways. When a servant struggled with a task, she helped without being asked. When a guest came to the house, she greeted them politely without seeking attention. Her patience was unlike anything he had seen in his wives. It was not charm or beauty that set her apart. She did not demand luxuries or insist on special treatment. Instead, she carried a quiet strength that went unnoticed at first, but it slowly began to make an impact. She listened when others spoke. She observed without judgment, and she acted without ego. In a house where control was everything, her presence was gentle yet firm. It's like a soft current that could not be ignored. At meals, she never argued, but she had opinions. When he asked her questions about the household, she answered honestly, without fear or exaggeration. For the first time, he met someone who could speak to him without pretending or bending to his will. He did not realize it yet, but he was learning something new. Respect was earned through quiet action. It's not fear or wealth. The servants began to notice the change. They were used to fear, used to walking on eggshells, used to seeing wives come and go. With her there was calm. She did not scold them, but she did not allow mistakes to pass unnoticed. She held a balance between kindness and firmness that made the household run smoother than it ever had. Even the man began to sense a difference. Though he did not admit it, he caught himself observing her, noticing how she handled challenges without complaint. When a small crisis arose, like a broken water pipe or a disagreement between workers, she did not panic. She stepped in, offered solutions, and carried herself with a confidence that surprised him. He expected her to break, like the others had. But she remained composed. Despite her quiet ways, she had moments of vulnerability. Sometimes she would pause in her work and stare out of the window, thinking of the life she had left behind. She missed her family and the simplicity of her old home. But instead of complaining, she used that longing to fuel her resilience. Every small task completed, every kind word spoken, every challenge met strengthened her silently. The man began to test her, as he did all women before her. He created situations where he expected irritation or failure. He raised his voice or questioned her decisions, expecting her to crumble. She did not. She answered calmly, often with a simple explanation that made sense, without anger or tears. Each time, he felt a flicker of unease. No one had ever met his challenges without faltering. She met them without fear. Over time, she earned the trust of people who had doubted her. The workers, who were once wary, began to seek her advice. Neighbors, who had whispered about her poverty and simplicity, began to see her as someone capable. Even relatives, who had resigned themselves to his previous patterns, noticed a subtle shift in the household's energy. The 11th wife was not just surviving, she was quietly influencing the environment around her. Her strength was not loud or aggressive, it was patient and enduring. She listened when he spoke, even when his words were harsh, and she responded thoughtfully. She did not compete with him for attention, nor did she attempt to control him. Instead, she focused on improving the household, supporting the people who lived there, and maintaining her dignity. Her actions spoke louder than any words, and slowly, they began to change his perception. The first few months were difficult, but the routine helped. He noticed small details he had not before. How she managed time, how she treated others, how she reacted to unexpected problems. These observations confused him because he was used to women who either feared him or flattered him. She did neither, yet she commanded a quiet respect that made him pause. People around them started noticing subtle changes as well. The house seemed calmer, the staff happier, the guests more comfortable. Even outsiders who visited commented on the change in atmosphere, though they did not know the cause. She did not seek recognition. She did not desire fame. Her only goal was to do her best in her small corner of the world, and in doing so, she had begun to shift the balance of power in a house that had always been ruled by fear. Her kindness was practical, not sentimental. When someone needed help, she provided it, but she also taught them to help themselves. She understood that true support was not giving everything freely, but guiding others to grow. This wisdom, learned from a life of hardship, became her greatest strength. Even when he tried to challenge her, she remained steady. She did not argue for the sake of arguing. She did not cry or plead for sympathy. Instead, she calmly presented solutions, set boundaries, and showed that she would not be manipulated. For the first time, he met someone who could face him without fear, without hidden motives, and without weaknesses, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The 11th wife quietly became a central figure in the household. People began to seek her guidance not because they had to, but because they trusted her judgment. Her reputation grew slowly, unseen by him at first, but undeniable. Even in her quiet ways, she was changing the household and the people within it. She had not come to challenge him, nor to prove herself. She had come simply to live, to survive, and to maintain her dignity. Yet, in doing so, she was reshaping the world around her. The man who had believed he could replace women like objects was beginning to see that some strength cannot be replaced. Some respect cannot be bought, and some presence cannot be ignored. What he did not yet realize was that this quiet woman, entering his life with nothing, would soon challenge everything he believed about control, power, and marriage. Months passed, and the 11th wife became more than a quiet presence in the house. She became a part of its rhythm. She understood the patterns of daily life, the moods of the servants, the habits of the man, and even the unspoken tensions that existed between them. While others might have been intimidated by the power and wealth surrounding them, she navigated it carefully, choosing patience over haste. Observation over arguments, she had learned that influence did not always come from loud words or visible actions. Sometimes the smallest gestures had the greatest impact. When a servant struggled to complete a task, she would quietly guide them, offering a gentle hand or a soft word of encouragement. She never called attention to herself, yet her actions gradually transformed the household. The house, once filled with tension, began to feel lighter. Even the man noticed. Though he did not fully understand why, he began to test her as he had tested the others. He would make unreasonable demands, create unexpected challenges, and sometimes speak harshly. He expected fear or defiance, but she responded with calmness and logic. She did not argue for the sake of arguing, nor did she cry or beg. Instead, she assessed the situation, chose a sensible solution, and acted. Her composure puzzled him. No one had faced him with such quiet strength before. Her resilience became more apparent in moments of crisis. One afternoon, a sudden storm caused damage to the property. The wind had broken windows and leaked water into rooms that had never seen a drop. The man was furious, shouting and blaming anyone near him. While others cowered, she moved quickly, organizing repairs and ensuring the safety of the servants and herself. She handled the chaos efficiently, directing attention where it was needed most, and calming tensions without raising her voice. For the first time, he saw someone respond to disaster, not with panic, but with control and poise. The servants began to trust her more than they trusted anyone else. They had been trained to fear the man and obey him without question. But with her, they learned that it was possible to act with confidence, to make decisions without worry. They saw that she could handle problems, and that her decisions brought results. Slowly, their fear turned into respect, and their respect into loyalty. The household, once a place of tension and suspicion, began to feel organized and calm. Even neighbors noticed the difference. The house that had once seemed cold and unwelcoming now had a softer energy. People who visited remarked on the warmth in the rooms and the politeness of the staff. Little did they know that it was the 11th wife's quiet influence creating this atmosphere. She had not sought praise, nor did she want it. Her focus was on maintaining dignity and helping others navigate the challenges of the household. While her patience was admirable, she was not without her own thoughts and reflections. She often found herself thinking about her past life, the struggles she had endured, and the simplicity of her earlier days. She remembered the hunger she had known, the fear she had carried, and the dreams that had seemed impossible. These memories did not weaken her. They strengthened her. She knew what it meant to survive. She drew from that strength every day. The man began to notice that she did not fit the mold he had grown accustomed to. She did not compete for attention. She did not flatter him unnecessarily. And she did not fear him in the ways others had. Instead, she acted with quiet confidence, showing competence in small matters that slowly influenced bigger ones. He found himself observing her more often than he had intended, noting how she managed situations that he himself would have struggled with. He could not name it, but a sense of unease began to grow. For the first time, he faced someone who did not respond to his authority with submission or fear. One evening, there was a disagreement between two workers over an important task. In the past, such a disagreement would have escalated, and the man would have intervened with harsh words. This time, he watched her step forward. She listened to both sides carefully, asked simple, clarifying questions, and guided them toward a fair solution. She did not need to command. Her presence alone created a sense of order. When the man saw the resolution, he felt a strange mix of pride and discomfort. Pride because she had handled it well, discomfort because she had done so without needing him. Her influence grew slowly, almost invisibly. The more she acted with competence and kindness, the more people gravitated toward her. The man began to rely on her opinions, even without admitting it to himself. He would ask for her input in small decisions and find that her suggestions made sense, often saving him effort and trouble. Though he did not voice it, he was learning that her quiet wisdom was valuable, and that her strength was not something to be ignored. She also began to notice his patterns, his moods, and his weaknesses. She understood that his arrogance was often a shield for insecurities and past disappointments. She did not confront him aggressively about these flaws. Instead, she navigated around them, finding ways to guide him subtly. She knew when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to observe. Her approach required patience and intelligence, qualities that were becoming increasingly evident to everyone around them. Despite the growing trust and respect, she never allowed herself to be complacent. She understood that one misstep could undo the progress she had made. Every interaction was deliberate, thoughtful, and calm. Even when faced with criticism or impatience from the man, she remained poised. She did not take offense, nor did she react impulsively. She maintained a balance between standing her ground and being considerate, a skill that the man had never encountered before. Her quiet endurance began to shift the household's dynamics in ways that were subtle but undeniable. Conflicts were resolved more efficiently, morale improved, and the overall energy of the house became lighter. People began to see her as a leader, though she did not claim the title. She had become the center of stability in a household that had long lacked it as time went on. The man could no longer ignore the changes she brought. He realized that she was not like the wives he had known. She did not seek to control him. She did not seek wealth or attention, and she did not fear him. She simply existed with strength, dignity, and patience. And that strength, though quiet, was impossible to overlook. Her actions were a mirror, reflecting what he had failed to see in his previous relationships. He began to question his own behavior, though he struggled to admit it to himself. For the first time, he faced the uncomfortable truth that not all women could be molded or replaced. Some could stand independently, influence their surroundings, and earn respect through character alone. The 11th wife had not come with a plan to dominate or change him. She had come with nothing but her resilience and quiet determination. Yet, in the span of months, she had transformed the household, earned the trust of everyone around her, and challenged the man's assumptions. Her strength was not loud or aggressive, but it was steady and enduring. And it was becoming increasingly clear that the man, who had once believed he could replace women like objects, was facing someone he could not control. One afternoon, a crisis struck the household that no one could have foreseen. A major supplier for the man's business had failed, leaving the estate in financial trouble. Bills that had been carefully managed suddenly seemed impossible to pay on time. Orders were delayed, workers grew anxious, and the man felt his authority challenged in a way he had never experienced before. The household, once calm under her quiet influence, now teetered on the edge of panic. He paced the floors of the main hall, throwing his hands in the air, frustrated and angry. He was used to handling problems, but this situation felt overwhelming. He shouted instructions, blamed workers, and demanded solutions immediately, expecting swift results. Everyone else froze, unsure how to respond. It was a storm that exposed weakness in every corner except for one. The 11th wife stepped forward calmly. She had been quietly observing, noting the failures and gaps that had led to the current situation. Unlike the others, she did not respond with fear or panic. She did not seek to blame anyone, nor did she allow herself to be intimidated. Instead, she began to organize the people around her, creating order out of chaos. She first approached the workers, assigning specific tasks and clear responsibilities. She encouraged them with quiet words, explaining how each action could stabilize the household and help everyone survive the difficult days ahead. Her tone was steady, confident, and supportive, giving people a sense of purpose and control. Slowly, the tension began to ease as people followed her guidance. Next, she spoke to the managers and senior staff. She reviewed the accounts, identified errors, and suggested practical steps to prevent further losses. She explained her plans clearly, ensuring that everyone understood their roles. No one questioned her, because her calm authority was undeniable. She did not command for the sake of control. She guided with reason and understanding. The man watched, his initial frustration giving way to a mix of surprise and unease. He had never seen a wife manage a crisis with such efficiency. His previous wives would have panicked, argued, or complained. This woman, however, handled the situation with a quiet mastery that left him unsettled. He found himself following her lead, reluctantly acknowledging that her actions were improving the situation faster than he could have done alone. Days passed, and the 11th wife continued to stabilize the household. She coordinated deliveries, negotiated with creditors, and motivated workers. She even devised solutions that saved money without compromising the quality of life in the household. Her actions were deliberate, careful, and effective. The crisis, which had initially seemed overwhelming, slowly began to resolve, and the household started functioning smoothly again. During this time, the man began to reflect on his past behavior. He realized that he had underestimated her from the beginning, assuming that her poverty and quiet demeanor meant weakness. He saw how wrong he had been. Her strength was not visible in loud words or dramatic gestures. It was in her patience, her intelligence, and her ability to act decisively under pressure. For the first time, he faced someone who could challenge him without trying to dominate him. The workers and staff began to respect her more than ever. They shared stories of how she had prevented disasters and guided them through difficulties. Her reputation grew, not through boasting, but through the results she delivered. Even neighbors and business partners noticed the changes. The man's reputation, previously tied to his wealth and control, now seemed incomplete without acknowledging her contribution. The turning point became even clearer. One evening, when a major shipment was delayed, threatening to undo all the progress made, panic returned to the house, but she did not waver. She contacted alternative suppliers, arranged faster transport, and coordinated with the staff to ensure that every possible step was taken. Her composure inspired confidence in everyone around her, including the man. He realized that her decisions had not only saved the household, but had also preserved his reputation. Through this crisis, the 11th wife proved that her strength was not temporary. She was not merely enduring the situation. She was transforming it. Her calm intelligence, patience, and quiet leadership had become the backbone of the household. The man who had once replaced wives as if they were objects now faced the reality that she was indispensable. Her presence could not be ignored or discarded. This was a moment of reckoning for him. He understood, though reluctantly, that the house had changed because of her. He had always believed that control was the key to stability. But she showed him that true stability came from respect, competence, and collaboration. She did not seek to dominate him. She only sought to act rightly. And in doing so, she had reshaped the dynamics of power in a house that had long been ruled by fear. In private moments, the man reflected on his own shortcomings. He saw how his past arrogance, impatience, and dismissal of feelings had created chaos in his previous marriages. He realized that he had never truly understood the value of patience, understanding, or quiet strength. For the first time, he recognized that these qualities were powerful, more powerful than wealth or authority alone. The 11th wife, meanwhile, remained humble. She did not seek praise or acknowledgement. Her satisfaction came from seeing the household functioning smoothly and from knowing that she had acted with integrity and competence. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. She had faced fear and chaos without flinching and had guided everyone to safety and stability. As the crisis finally subsided, the household breathed a collective sigh of relief. The man, for the first time, looked at her with a mix of respect and admiration. He realized that he had underestimated her, and he began to understand that she was not like the women he had known before. She was resilient, intelligent, capable of shaping outcomes without seeking power. This turning point marked a shift not only in the household, but in the man himself. He began to question his assumptions, his past behaviors, and his attitudes toward relationships. He realized that replacing wives like objects had been a mistake, that true partnership required recognition, respect, and understanding. The 11th wife, without ever demanding it, had taught him lessons that he could not ignore. Her influence had grown quietly but powerfully. She had turned fear into trust, chaos into order, and doubt into confidence. And while she had not sought to change the man, her actions had done so nonetheless. The 11th wife had risen strong, not through wealth, beauty, or manipulation, but through patience, intelligence, and unwavering integrity. She had proven that strength could be quiet, influence could be subtle, and respect could not be bought, but must be earned. By the end of the crisis, everyone understood her worth. The household, once ruled by fear, now operated with a sense of stability and confidence. The man, who had always believed that control was absolute, now faced a new reality. Some strength could not be controlled, some influence could not be ignored, and some presence could not be replaced. The 11th wife had risen strong, and the man's world had changed because of her. The 11th wife had changed the house in ways that could no longer be ignored. The once tense atmosphere had softened, and people moved with purpose and calm. Her patience and quiet leadership had become the foundation on which the household now rested. Even the man who had once believed control was everything began to feel the shift within himself. He noticed that he was no longer the central figure in every decision. He saw the workers consult her first, and he heard neighbors speak with respect about her insight. At first, he felt a strange discomfort, as if he had lost something he had always held. But over time, he realized that the household had not weakened. It had strengthened because of her. The organization, the loyalty of the staff, and the smooth running of every task proved her worth. And he could no longer dismiss it. She had not sought power or recognition. Every action she took was deliberate and thoughtful, meant to maintain order, dignity, and fairness. Her focus was on solving problems, helping people, and creating an environment where everyone could function with confidence. Her strength was subtle, yet undeniable. People followed her because they trusted her, not because they feared her. The man began to see the contrast between her and the wives he had replaced before. Those women had reacted with fear, anger, or pleading. They had tried to change him, to conform to his expectations, or to please him. She did none of these things. Instead, she worked quietly, acted responsibly, and remained composed even under pressure. This realization forced him to reflect on his own actions. He saw the mistakes he had made and the pain he had caused without understanding it. For the first time, he faced the consequences of his past in a way that was not abstract but visible. Her influence extended beyond the household. Business partners began to notice that things were running more smoothly than before. Suppliers who had once been difficult now worked willingly because she had organized the staff and ensured clear communication. Even the man's reputation, which had been tarnished by his pattern of failed marriages, began to recover as people witnessed the stability she had brought. It was clear that her presence was not just beneficial, but essential. She also influenced the man personally. He found himself listening to her advice, taking her suggestions seriously, and valuing her perspective. Her calm and thoughtful approach made him question his own decisions and attitudes. For the first time, he realized that respect and partnership were not about wealth or authority, but about understanding, integrity, and patience. She had shown him, without ever demanding it, that leadership could be quiet, that strength could be subtle, and that influence could come from care and intelligence rather than fear or dominance. People in the household started to rely on her, even for small decisions, trusting her judgment completely. They saw how she handled every situation with fairness and clarity, and they began to seek her guidance instinctively. Her ability to inspire confidence without asserting authority was remarkable. Even those who had been skeptical at first now followed her lead willingly. The man could not ignore it any longer. He realized that she was not just a wife. She was a partner in every sense that mattered. She had earned her place, not through flattery or submission, but through consistent action, integrity, and intelligence. She had taken what seemed like a fragile position as the poor 11th wife and transformed it into a role of respect, influence, and strength. He had no choice but to acknowledge her contribution and her significance. In private moments, he reflected on the pattern of his previous marriages. He thought about the women he had replaced and the mistakes he had made. He saw how his arrogance, impatience, and lack of understanding had caused pain and instability. He realized that the lesson she had taught him was one he could not ignore. Strength is not measured by wealth or control, and respect cannot be forced. Some people, like her, cannot be replaced because their value is intrinsic, not superficial. The 11th wife, meanwhile, remained humble. She did not boast about her accomplishments or seek credit for her actions. She focused on maintaining harmony, helping others, and acting with integrity. Her satisfaction came from seeing the household functioning smoothly, from witnessing the staff's confidence grow, and from knowing that she had acted rightly in every situation. Her influence was quiet but powerful, shaping the household in ways that could not be measured by money or status alone. As time went on, the household became an example of stability and calm in the community. Visitors remarked on the difference, noticing the organization, the respect among staff, and the warmth in the home. the man once feared for his control. And arrogance began to understand that these changes were the result of her quiet leadership. He began to respect her in ways he had never respected anyone before. Her strength had reshaped his world, and he knew it. Eventually, the man faced a choice: continue in his old ways, trying to assert control, or accept the change she had brought and embrace a new way of living. For the first time, he realized that he could not go back. Her presence had changed him, the household, and the people around them. He had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. She was irreplaceable. The 11th wife's rise was complete, not because she sought to dominate, but because she acted with patience, intelligence, and integrity. She had turned fear into trust, chaos into order, and doubt into confidence. The man who had once replaced women like objects now faced someone whose value could not be measured in wealth or obedience. She had risen strong, not by demanding power, but by earning it through action, character, and quiet leadership. By the end, everyone understood her worth. She had transformed the household, reshaped relationships, and influenced the man in ways that no one had thought possible. She had proven that true strength does not require dominance, that respect cannot be bought, and that some presence cannot be replaced. The 11th wife had entered the household with nothing. Yet she had become the cornerstone of everything it now represented. Her story became one of inspiration, showing that resilience, patience, intelligence, and integrity can change lives and reshape even the most rigid environments. She had risen strong, and in doing so, she had left an indelible mark on everyone around her. The man, once proud of replacing women, had learned that some strength could never be replaced. Some respect must be earned, and some people are irreplaceable. She had not only survived in a house that had claimed so many before her, she had thrived, transformed the world around her, and taught the man the true meaning of partnership, respect, and strength. Years passed, and the changes that the 11th wife had brought to the household became permanent. The house, once known for tension and fleeting relationships, had grown into a place of respect, understanding, and quiet strength. Her influence was no longer subtle. It had become the defining feature of the home, and everyone who lived or worked there felt the difference. She had grown in confidence, not through arrogance or insistence, but through the steady accumulation of small victories. Every problem she solved, every life she touched, and every decision she made reinforced her importance. Her patience, which had seemed like quiet endurance at first, had turned into wisdom. And her careful guidance shaped not just the household, but the lives of those around her. She had become a source of inspiration for everyone who met her. The man, who had once treated women as if they were replaceable, now looked at her with a new understanding. He had faced many challenges in his life, but none had tested him like the calm determination and intelligence of this wife. He realized that true strength could not be forced or bought. It was earned through character, patience, and integrity. The 11th wife had shown him this in every action she took. She continued to handle the household with care, always observing, always acting thoughtfully. When workers faced difficulties, she guided them. When plans threatened to fail, she devised solutions. She balanced kindness with firmness, and her decisions were respected by all. People had learned to rely on her judgment, and in doing so, they had found stability, confidence, and hope. Outside the household, her reputation had grown. Neighbors, business partners, and even distant acquaintances spoke of her wisdom and composure. She was known for her ability to resolve conflicts, for her fairness, and for her quiet leadership. Yet she never sought praise or recognition. She continued to work diligently, believing that actions mattered more than words or accolades. The man began to change as well. He noticed that his own behavior had shifted. He listened more, considered opinions carefully, and reflected on his decisions. He realized that respect could not be demanded, and that collaboration often led to better results than control. In private, he admitted to himself that he had learned more from her than from anyone else in his life. Her presence had reshaped his understanding of relationships, authority, and leadership. Over time, the 11th wife became a mentor and guide to others in the household. She taught younger women and men about patience, integrity, and responsibility. She demonstrated that leadership was not about domination or fear, but about trust, competence, and empathy. The lessons she imparted were quietly transformative. Influencing generations to come, her influence was not limited to practical matters. She had also changed the emotional atmosphere of the household. Where there had once been tension, suspicion, and fear, there was now warmth, trust, and mutual respect. People spoke openly, shared concerns, and celebrated successes together. Her ability to foster these connections was a testament to her strength, empathy, and understanding. Even during moments of challenge or disagreement, she maintained composure. She understood that conflict was natural, but she addressed it with care, listening to all sides and guiding discussions toward solutions. Her calm approach diffused tension, prevented escalation, and encouraged collaboration. People learned from her example. Becoming more patient and understanding themselves, the man often reflected on how different life had become. He remembered the wives he had replaced, the patterns of control and dismissal, and the chaos that had once dominated the household. He realized that much of the suffering could have been avoided if he had understood the value of respect, patience, and genuine partnership. The 11th wife had shown him through actions rather than words that relationships built on understanding and integrity were far more enduring and meaningful than those built on control and fear. As the years went on, her quiet influence expanded beyond the home. She became a figure that people in the community sought for guidance. Her reputation for wisdom and fairness reached neighbors, friends, and business associates alike. Her impact was subtle but powerful, demonstrating that true strength was not in dominance or wealth, but in the consistent practice of integrity, patience, and care. Despite all this, she remained humble. She did not see herself as superior or more important than others. Her goal was never recognition. It was to act rightly, to support others, and to ensure the household thrived. Her humility made her strength even more remarkable. As people followed her willingly and respected her deeply, the man, observing her growth and influence, found himself increasingly reliant on her judgment. He sought her advice in matters large and small, and he trusted her instincts even when they challenged his own assumptions. For the first time, he understood that partnership was not about control, but about mutual respect and collaboration. She had reshaped his understanding of leadership, relationships, and the value of human connection. The household itself had become a model of stability and efficiency. Tasks were managed well, conflicts were resolved quickly, and people felt valued and respected. The environment she had nurtured allowed everyone to contribute their best. And the results were evident in the smooth running of every part of the household. Her leadership, quiet yet powerful, had transformed a place once ruled by fear into a home built on respect and trust over the years. Her example inspired others beyond the household. People who met her learned the value of patience, integrity, and quiet leadership. They saw that influence did not require domination, that respect could not be forced, and that strength could exist in calm, deliberate action. She became a living testament to the power of character, humility, and perseverance. Through her journey, she had faced challenges that could have broken her. She had endured judgment, poverty, and doubt. Yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more influential than anyone had anticipated. Her rise was not about wealth, beauty, or status. It was about resilience, intelligence, patience, and integrity. She had proven that a person's true worth is revealed through actions, consistency, and the way they treat others. By the end, everyone who knew her understood her value. The household was no longer a place of fear or control. And the man who had once replaced wives with ease had learned the most important lesson of his life. Some people are irreplaceable. Some strength cannot be bought, and respect cannot be demanded. The 11th wife had not only survived, she had transformed her world, guided others, and left a lasting legacy of patience, wisdom, and quiet power. Her story became one that people would tell for years, a reminder that resilience, humility, and integrity could change lives and reshape even the most rigid environments. She had risen from poverty to influence, from quiet beginnings to lasting respect, and in doing so, she had shown that true strength is found not in wealth or control, but in the unwavering commitment to do what is right, even when no one is watching.